Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video review series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video, I'll be reviewing the DM's Guild Adventure Collection, The Lonely Scroll Adventure Contest Saltmarsh, curated by MT Black for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your DM's Guild shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to my platinum patrons, Andrew, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Nick, and Rodney. And gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos de Vicente, Gilberto, Sean, A.K. Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, and Arash. Thank you all very much for your support. So what this is, the curator, MT Black, put out a call for one page. I think it actually started as a suggestion, and in the foreword, they actually mentioned that they wasn't their idea to actually put this together, which is funny. But put an idea for just a collection of one single page adventures, kind of like the ones you would find maybe in like old Dungeon magazine or something. And they ended up getting a huge collection of submissions from veteran game designers, new game designers, anybody that's wanting to write a single-page adventure, and put them all in a single product, which is the Lonely Scroll Adventure Contest, with the theme of Saltmarsh. So they didn't have to necessarily have to do with like ships and things, but they should be able to be placed within a Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign, because this was done in the summer of 2019 when Ghosts of Saltmarsh was released. The curator and another judge went through and awarded winners to some of the adventures, but otherwise this is the full collection of 47 single-page adventures, which means it was kind of a nightmare to review because it was 47 adventures in one. Granted, they're all a single page, but there's a huge difference in there. Some of them are dungeon crawls, some of them are murder mysteries, some of them are wilderness exploration adventures, some of them are mini stories with timelines that are laid out. The sheer variety is staggering, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I really think there's something for everyone here, no matter what your tastes are in terms of what you like to run. Do you like to run dungeons? Do you like to run more role-playing, set up encounters? Whatever it is you want to do, there is at least one single-page adventure in here that you are going to love. I will pretty much guarantee it, just because there's so much variety with 47 of them. The flip side of that is there were no set rules for like formatting. So, for example, I had to actually set this to single page. Every single DM's Guild review that I do, I have a 2-page spread. But in this one, first of all, it makes sense because they're all single page adventures. But some of them are done in landscape format instead of the standard letter format, which is a pain in the butt when doing a digital copy, because I have to sit there and go to view and rotate some of the pages. About maybe, I would say a third. It's not like there's 2 or 3, like a third of them. So there's probably like 15 to 20. That'd be half. Probably more like a dozen are done in that landscape format, because that uses, you can use space a little better. There's all kinds of differences in terms of how the maps are used and how art is used. And if it's just a black and white piece of paper, some of them have really teeny tiny font so they can shove as much story as they can into this single page. It's a bit of a nightmare to review from a layout and presentation standpoint, because every single page is different. It's just completely bonkers with how one page can different from the other, because there were no set rules on the formatting, other than everything is decently well edited and well written. I didn't discover any kind of typos or bad, poor like sentence structure, anything like that. So that part is really good. There was like a level of professionalism with everything, but just in terms of how people wanted to approach it with their own design is all kinds of different. And that is both good and bad. Because it is a pain in the butt to go through and have to like rotate some of these and whatnot. So the way I went through and reviewed it is I skipped this page, which was the judge's decision, which a judge performed by best-selling adventure writer Tony Petrecca went through and awarded from these 47 entries. I don't know if there were more entries that didn't make the cut or not, but there were 47 included in this adventure. that were given awards of different categories. And the categories here were Best Dungeon Adventure, Best Wilderness Adventure, Best Urban Adventure, Best Nautical Adventure, and Best Overall Adventure. I saw this, the very heading, saw the idea behind it, and didn't purposely read any of the categories or the ones that won before I went into it, because I didn't want any preconceived notions of what somebody else thought were the best ones. So instead, I went through, wrote down in my notes which ones that I really enjoyed personally, and then only after going through every single adventure did I come back to this page and actually read through and see what the differences were. And it was pretty interesting. Some of them, two of them were winners in my book as well. And then one of them I pretty much had dismissed, which is interesting. And then the other two were kind of okay in my book, but weren't necessarily top of the line. Interestingly enough, one of them is one of my best ones is a runner-up in here. So it's just kind of, that's what I'm getting at in terms of whatever your tastes are. And obviously this is my review, this is my taste. You are going to find something that you really do love, because there's just so much difference. Now, I cannot go through and literally explain every single one of these 47 adventures. So instead, I am going to call out the ones that I really enjoyed to highlight kind of the best of what this has to offer. But do realize none of them are bad, I would say, which is impressive. None of them was I really like, oh, this is just a bad put together adventure. I think they are all of a certain quality, which is pretty damn impressive. So the average is really high, because they go from okay to fantastic. So, it averages to be pretty good, I think, in the end. None of them did I feel like, oh, this is just straight up bad or not going to work. So that part's really impressive. So in terms of complaints about bad ones, I don't have that. So I'm just going to highlight the ones that I really liked. And then I will also talk about the ones that made the best of lists here, which I did write down in my notes. So my favorites include, and there's a little bit of lag I noticed with this one. I might have to do something with the fact that every single page is formatted differently. So kind of bear with me as I go along. Okay, Craggy Island was one I really enjoyed. It's just a very simple wilderness exploration, which I think didn't even make the top list of wilderness adventures. It did not. So there was a top 3, and then one of them was chosen out of those. So interestingly enough, one of the ones that I really liked isn't even included in here. I like the ones that include a map, even if it's not a full, and I definitely give a pass, because usually I complain about not having full color maps and everything. But if you've got a 1-page adventure, you're already starved for what you can do. Yeah, it would be nice to have a full color map in there, but if you just want to throw a black and white, even a hand-drawn map or something on there, I'm going to give you a pass on that. But if you don't give me a map at all and you want to do some kind of dungeon, then that's going to be a problem. So I do like it when we get the wilderness ones and we get these nice maps. In fact, this first one at Loggerheads had a really nice color map, which is gorgeous. I just didn't like the actual design quite as much. Craggy Island I enjoyed because you go to this island and there's a note you find that just says only the cowrie shells will save her. You don't know what that means. And you go to all these different locations and there's these different encounters. There might be a trap, there might be a crazed turtle or a siren luring people, or just a bunch of birds. And every single encounter has a shell. So the parties are collecting these shells. And then at some point they will reach this grotto where they find a sea hag who's chained up and has these kind of pillars around her. And the idea is to save her, to like transform her back into a human or whatever. You need to be able to place each of those shells on the thing, or you could just fight the sea hag, I guess. But I like that fact that there's a kind of a collection aspect to this adventure. You have to actually encounter all the different things. You gather the shells. You get the thing at the beginning. It's all very exploration, and there's a good mix of combat and everything in there. So just pretty solid. And again, this is a 1-page adventure. You can't really do a whole lot with that, but I was impressed with how, given that very clear size limitation, a lot of these designers can do some really cool things. I'm going to go in alphabetical order because that is what that's how this is designed, with all the adventures in alphabetical order. Doll's Eyes, just briefly, and here's an example. This is not one that actually particularly made my list of good ones, but I just enjoyed it because it's very much got Jaws in it. Literally summons a ghost shark because these two eyes of this shark are brought together kind of by accident. And there's a bunch of just fun Jaws references with actual characters, and there's a ship that gets attacked and all that. But I actually wish it went harder in Jaws. There's another one that did make my favorite list that is fully based on a movie that works much better than this one. The Dreams of Prince Popo was one of my favorites, and turns out to be the best overall adventure, according to the judge of the the Lonely Scroll Adventure Contest. The Dreams of Prince Popo is just a really fun idea. It's a toddler is the quest giver who can do this kind of Inception thing with his magical sleep sack, and everybody goes to the toddler's dreamland. It's a really cool idea. I don't see in D&D a lot, which is more of almost a kid-based adventure. And you kind of experience all these cool floating islands. There's things on each one of these, and then the final battle is against this scary blue monster, which is an Oni, but it's seeing through the eyes of the kid. And the end is a really emotional twist because you find out that his friend, who he's trying to rescue, is actually the soul of a dead child. And that's how he visits that child. He's not actually rescuing him from that dream world to bring into our world. It is stuck in that world. So it's a really emotional gut punch at the end. So just a really cool adventure. I love the little map design here. And it's a neat idea having a toddler quest giver. I think that's actually really fantastic. The Dreams of Prince Popo. We're going to skip ahead to, let's see, I don't want to skip the other. The winner of best, let's see, 11 is one of my favorites. Dumplings and Dragons. Oh no, what happened here? When are these? Oh, I'm still twisted. That's why. We need to go back to, see, this is what I'm talking about. You have to rotate, which sucks. I never have to do this in the DM's Good Reviews. Dumpling and Dragons is one of my favorite dungeon crawls because I really like the formatting of this one. It's got the map. It's got really fun art with a little feed me on there, which is fun. The way it's the font and the numbers, the annotations, it's just at a glance. Like you just look at this and you're like, oh, I instantly can see all the information that I need. It's just absolutely fantastic formatting. It is a good dungeon crawl in general too. You go along and through these caves and you collect these mushrooms, and then at the end you have to have gotten enough mushrooms to basically go through a skill challenge of making this mushroom. What are you making? Some kind of a mushroom dumpling recipe. Okay. To feed this dragon. And if you fail the skill challenge, you have to fight the dragon, or you could poison the dragon if you make a few extra skill challenges. So it's a really neat idea as a final climax to this dungeon crawl. But I also just really love the formatting here. This to me looks like a really good one-page adventure that perfectly makes use of space in all its different areas. So I thought that was just particularly impressive. Esmerelda's Floating Circus was apparently the best nautical adventure, according to the judge. I disagree completely. It's not bad. Again, none of these are bad. I just wasn't particularly thrilled with it. It's a werewolf entertainment troupe. I do like the fact that you can kind of go around and it's more of an exploration and role-playing thing, but it just didn't quite sell me as being an interesting location to deal with. I actually preferred for a nautical adventure The Plight of the Navigator, which had a really fun kind of Jason Thompson-esque cartoon map, which I'll definitely show that when we get to it. Let's see. Eye of the Storm was the best wilderness. That was on 15. Again, I'm having to skip around because there's no way we're going to cover all of these. Rotate the view. This is annoying. This was just a cool little ship dungeon. Very, very much a miniature dungeon. But I just thought it was just a solidly put together wilderness adventure. This was the best wilderness adventure according to the judge. For my wilderness adventure, I actually preferred the Ice in the Veins, which was based on The Thing, which is really cool. This one's not bad, though. Again, none of them are bad. Just a nice little adventure. I did like was this one with the pufferfish? Yes. Okay. A door had a talking pufferfish named Tony. To make the tentacles retract, the party must make Tony puff up through laughter, fear, surprise, or something else. Tony's been around for quite a while. It's not as easy as one would think. That's a funny idea to get through a door. Instead of lockpicking or something, you have to make a pufferfish laugh or be surprised or something. Just a lot of nautical creatures and designs in here, which is, again, a running theme for a lot of these dungeons. Rotate back. Next up, we've got, see, I did Eye of the Storm. I think it's Ice in the Veins. Is that the next one that I like? There's so many of these. And some of these have no art whatsoever. It's just like text. Some of them have really not great formatting and really tiny text. And others have really impressive things going on. I'm just kind of flipping through real quick so you can see the difference here. This is one that turned me off because of the tiny text, for example. And I get it's hard to shove all that stuff into a single page, but some designers do it very, very well. And that's probably an idea that maybe you've got too much adventure if you can't quite fit it on a single page, because that is part of the challenge. So that's kind of partly of how I'm ranking them in my head in terms of which ones do I like. Let's see. It is. This was a solid dungeon one. Gobbledygook. Which one am I at? Am I in Ice in the Veins, which is 25? So I've got more to go. Which is right here. This was one of my favorites, which only made the runner-up for Best Wilderness. This is The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's done in a really cool format where it gives you an introduction, which sets things up. Your characters have to basically hide out in this ironclad that is in the middle of a snowstorm. You've got the environment. You basically an excuse to trap players in there, and then these different NPCs show up, and you're all trapped together. And most of the adventure is taken up by, first of all, a fourth of it is taken up by the actual The Thing type creature, which is impressive that none of the others really had stat blocks because you don't want to waste that space. But this one is brevity is the soul of wit. Like, just describing these characters. For example, Dara Amberhilt, cut from steel, stoops in doorways, stares into your soul, feared monster slayer, refuses to die, incorruptible, inevitable, goal to hunt down the survivor she's been tracking and slay the monster inside. That is a perfect amount of information done in very quick, punctuated, adjectives and descriptive words. So I really love the way that's used. They've got all the NPCs, and then the entire adventure is done in this timeline where you're just supposed to describe what's going on. You build the storms level. You get this drama of who's the monster and who's not, and it's very much in a brief style. And it even has like little flavor text here at the bottom with all the what sayings that the characters can use. Really, really cool idea. I was very impressed with this. Obviously, I love The Thing. And I thought it was a really interesting way of taking a, pop culture movie that a lot of people, even if they haven't seen, they've probably heard of it and know how it goes, and transferring that into D&D. And I think it works really, really well. And it's funny. It even has a doppelganger as a like red herring character, the one that's trying to like hide who they are, but it's not because they're a monster. So really, really cool idea. I was very impressed with that. That was one of my personal favorites. Rotate back. We've got Quite the Pickle at 34 that I liked. I already passed Plight of the Navigator. That's right. Which is, let's keep going. Again, you can see the insane amount of differences in all of these formatting. Plight of the Navigator. Turns out I like a lot of the landscape ones. Oddly enough, I just thought this one had a really fun cartoon map. This is the Jason Thompson style. Where it's like a dungeon map, but there's like things going on in like almost a Where's Waldo type style. I think this was absolutely fun. The handwritten annotations are amazing, and it's just a decent little dungeon crawl. It's a ship that is in the process of being attacked and invaded by Sahuagin attackers. So it's a neat idea for a dungeon encounter, and just the fact that we get this really fun cartoon map makes it a extremely enjoyable one-page adventure just from sheer look alone, frankly. Plight of the Navigator. All right, Quite the Pickle on 34. This one was one of the few, again, Dreams of Popo was the overall adventure and one of my favorites. This was another one that was one of my favorites and made Best Urban Adventure. This one just had some batshit cool ideas. It was a tavern that is fully fleshed out, very piratey tavern. There's a were-crocodile. There's a mimic that is a friendly mimic that can sign with thieves' cant, that can turn into like a jar of like pickles or some shit. And there's a whole sequence where you have to save the were-crocodile or the were-crocodile from sharks, because there was almost like a slapstick between it and the mimic trying to like pull like pickles out. It's absolutely insane and crazy, but it's really fun. There's a lot of funny ideas here. There's a whole little game you can play with darts in the tavern. It's a fun idea for one-page adventure that's specifically not a dungeon crawl, but more of just a series of hilarious events with some fun characters and fun things happening. So in terms of what I think of as a good urban adventure, which is more role-playing based versus going through dungeons, this is definitely a great one. And this is one of the few that I agreed with the judge that it was absolutely fantastic. And then the final one that I will go over is look at this one, it looks like a board game too, Ruinous Islands. The Songs of Saltmarsh, which is, where are you? Songs of Saltmarsh. Ship of Deceit has a mimic ship. That's pretty funny. Sidewinders is about a Yuan-Ti like rock band. Silver Dark has a neat little dungeon map in there. Singing Cave is a good dungeon crawl. A lot of these are just really solid mini dungeon crawls that would be perfect for a Ghost of Saltmarsh adventure. If you're looking for mini dungeon crawls, this is a fantastic resource for that. Where the hell is the one I'm talking about? Song of Saltmarsh. Here we go. Song of Saltmarsh. Oh, I missed one of them that I really loved too. It was the forgot to highlight that one. Shoot. Well, let's go over Song of Saltmarsh real quick. This one I like because it could actually take place anywhere. And you have to find something called the Song of Saltmarsh from this noble's mansion. So it's a dungeon crawl inside a mansion. So you've got rugs of smothering. You've got monodrone like butlers. There's a laboratory with a closet inside. It's very highly themed for a mansion, which is a fun thing for a dungeon crawl. But I love the twist at the end. The Song of Saltmarsh is not a thing, it's a person. It's a woman who just sings really well. And she does specifically not want to be rescued because the person who wants her is the brother who is marrying her off to different nobles for his own gain, whereas she has her and the person whose house she's at they're actually lovers and they're trying to hide. So it's a very interesting twist at the end that players have to deal with that I thought is a really good story moment that just brought the whole thing in for me. I already liked the dungeon design quite a bit, and I thought that had a really good story beat to it. There was one I want to go over. I can't believe I missed it. That was also a great one. Before I do my final, let's see. I think it was at the end. It had a bunch of tables, and you were going around to... Oh, did I write it in my notes? This has been one of the most hardest ones to prep this review for, simply because there's so much... Okay, this one, Seeking the Wandering Isle. I like this idea because it puts forth like an almost battleship-style encounter where the players have to search for this wandering isle because it's on the back of a giant turtle. They have to return. First of all, it's got a great introduction. The quest giver explodes into water like in the first X-Men movie. And everybody is cursed with this black spot, and they have to return this artifact to a location in order to rescue the curse. That's a great hook. The problem is this island wanders around. You're supposed to create a 6x6 grid. The players start at 1-1. The island starts at 6-6. And then the island wanders as the players try to move around. And there's a really cool system where the players can move this ship. Everybody's got a different role. Everybody can make different skill checks, which has different things that they can do. So I love that aspect of all the players being able to use different skills to further their chances of getting to this island. And then there's a bunch of random encounters. I would have preferred, instead of being a bunch of random tables, there were a bunch of scripted encounters that players can instead get to, just to make it a little bit more interesting, instead of having this kind of, okay, I roll this, and roll this, and try to put all these things together. That's just more work for the DM. I would have rather had it just slightly more fleshed out. Here's a series of like 5 or 6 or 7 mini encounters that can occur because the players won't reach the island right away. But it's a really cool idea. I like the format of the 6x6 grid, the exploration, and then the actual adventure hook is really neat. All right, that was a lot of the adventures I tried to go over, but as I said, there are 47 of these, so I can't go over them all, but I will go over my pros and cons for the lagging Lonely Scroll Adventure Contest. There we go. Okay. Pro, nearly 51-page adventures, dungeon crawls, and side stories. And it's not even a question of quantity over quality, because I think the quantity is really high, which is basically my next pros. There's something for everyone with a huge variety of writing styles, layout designs, maps, and art. I just went over a fraction. I think I talked about maybe 10 of them. And there's 47. So there's a lot in here. Some of them I just thought were okay. Some of them I thought were absolutely amazing. None of them were particularly bad, which is amazing. On the flip side, with my one con, there's no formatting rule. So that leads to a lot of issues, including having to rotate pages for landscape layouts, and some of them having really terribly tiny font sizes that annoy the crap out of me. Final verdict. The Lonely Scrolls Adventure Contest features nearly 51-page adventures for Saltmarsh, showcasing many veteran and new designers within an interesting limitation. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.